guys, welcome to
the brand new podcast, Young and in Love.
Young and in Love.
This is the podcast, Young and in Love. Hello, young lovers, and welcome to another episode of Young and in Love. Young and in Love. Again, I'm Josh.
And I'm Taylor.
We're the Andersons. And this is Young and in Love. Young and in Love. Young and in Love.
Young and in Love.
This is Young and in Love. We're going to take a quick moment and highlight one of our sponsors, Anchor.
So if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let us explain.
It's free. All you need to do is download their app or visit their website, which is anchor.fm.
Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more.
They will literally take care of all of the distribution services, so all you have to do on the day of is hit publish. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone using an app or computer if you'd much rather just use the website.
You can even make money from your podcast without even having one listener.
Yeah, without a single listener, they'll find sponsors that are willing to give you a chance and give you a shot at making money.
It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place.
So all we ask is that if you have a story to tell or a message to share, that you download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Okay. So, welcome to another episode of Young and in Love. I am your host, Josh.
And I am your co-host, Taylor.
And today is an exciting day because we have our first ever guests on the show. So give a warm welcome to the Simpsons. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm Ben Simpson.
I'm Michaela Simpson.
We are the Simpsons. That is us.
The Simpsons. So they're friends from church that live with us here in Florida. And they also are young and in love. So we figured we'd have them on the podcast to get their thoughts and their ideas about and their experiences as a young married couple. So why don't you give a little bit of background about your guys' selves individually? So Ben, you can talk about you. And
okay.
Michaela, you can talk about.
All right. So I grew up in Spring, Texas, just outside of Houston. Really love a lot of the arts, photography, writing, and music. And I was homeschooled. That's something that I guess not everybody knows. But I guess I had a great life, great childhood. I went on a mission for my church to Portugal and moved to Utah, where I met this little lady right here. So I guess that's me in a nutshell.
I'm Michaela. I grew up in southern Colorado in a place called Alamosa that nobody really knows. What else?
She's a fabulous violinist.
I play the violin, and that's what I was going into for school for a while, but it changed, and I kind of want to do more of the therapy route. I served a mission in Singapore and Malaysia, and then came back to Utah, and that's where we met, and then we moved to Florida. Here we are.
And here we are.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Nice. So, how long have you guys been married?
10 months.
10 months, yeah.
10 months. Quick answer.
Yep.
We like to see it. And you guys got married in Utah, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And big wedding, small wedding?
Huge.
Huge.
Wow.
I'm the youngest of 12. And so I have a huge family.
Oh my.
And then Ben just has a lot of people from Texas that love him, that came up for the wedding.
Yeah.
Friends and family. So.
Yeah, we're fans of each other, and we had some fans of our own.
Yeah.
So we made a big party out of it.
Yeah, really in the temple, I think we had 100.
Oh my God.
For our ceiling. So
I don't even think our ceiling room had 100 seats.
Yeah, we had to ask for the biggest one.
Yeah, and we just about filled it. So.
Yeah, it was
That's
a big
amazing.
wedding. So
Yeah.
And then you guys had a big party afterwards as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. In the church gymnasium? Like
no, actually, I was way opposed to that. I was like, not going to happen. So I found a place in Payson, is 10 minutes from the temple we got married in.
Oh, very nice.
Beautiful venue.
Really, really pretty venue. It
Gorgeous.
had we did it outside mostly, and it was September night. It was beautiful. It was
September 29th.
Yeah.
Awesome. The 29th. My birthday is September 23rd.
There you go.
That's pretty cool.
Celebration all around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what is your love story? If you could describe it in the most romantic of ways.
Most romantic.
Yeah, the storybook version of your guys' courtship and like how you guys met, stuff like that.
In reality, it was pretty storybook, so it's pretty good.
I can do that. So the first meeting isn't as romantic. It was great, but it wasn't anything like stars and fireworks. And so we were in the same state in Utah, and a mutual friend of ours invited me and some of my friends to go to a party that was at Ben's house. And we got there, we just hung out, played Quiplash, I think, and just had fun. We didn't really talk to each other because he was in host mode. He was like making sure everyone was okay, and like Ben is very like making sure everyone's okay. And so it wasn't like anything miraculous the first time, but my friend really liked his friend, and so she wanted me to arrange like another get together so she could flirt with him. And so we've recently been into salsa dancing, my friends and I, and so we invited like the same group of people to go salsa dancing. And it's funny because the guy she liked, he actually showed up with a different girl, so that didn't work out. But anyway, you can take it from there.
So we show up at salsa dancing, and she had texted the group that she wasn't going to come, and I kind of already had my eye on her. I was talking to my friend. I was like, I'm going to ask that girl on a date for sure. So I was a little bit late to it, but I thought she wasn't going to be there. And I was showing up to be wingman for another one of my friends there.
That wanted the friend that wanted his friend.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Lots of things. So, anyway, so we both show up as wing people, right? I was a wing man. She was a wing woman. And I showed up and she was there. And I just remember it was a long day, an emotional day. And I just remember seeing her and just being so happy that she was there. Just like, yes, everything is right in the world. And so we danced the night away. We went out to the bench.
Yeah. So, we started dancing, and at first at this point I was like totally anti-boy. I had just gotten out of like a pretty bad relationship, so I was like, no. And I actually had like a fake engagement ring.
Oh wow!
That I wore
to sort of put them off.
Yeah, like no, I don't.
Back off, boys.
Not into this, and so
you didn't notice it.
Yeah.
And so I was wearing it that night, and I remember a point where we had been dancing and having so much fun, and just like all of my walls just like crumbled. And I remember like switching it to my right hand, and just that was like kind of a symbol for me. Like, okay, maybe this could work. Yeah. And so I asked him to go outside if he just wanted to go get some air. And so we walked outside, and it was kind of raining, and he took me to his car. He's like, I have to go get something. And like part of me was like, this is kind of creepy, but like we walked over there, and he pulls out a Snuggie, and I'm like, who has a Snuggie in their trunk?
It was my sister. Just throw that out there.
Yes.
Thought it was a blanket.
And so he takes the Snuggie and like puts it on the bench so we wouldn't get wet, and it was really sweet. And
kind of a whirlwind from there. We had an entire week of these just perfect dates, just incredible, just all over
every night.
Utah County every night. So she was working, and she got out of work at 11, right?
At night?
At 9.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And so our dates would start then
At 11.
and stop at like 4 o'clock in the morning.
Oh,
because she was working these crazy shifts. And so we just basically tore up the town at night, and we just went all around. We sang and danced in a tunnel. And then a week later, so that was on Saturday. It was a week after our first official date. We were dancing on a beach close to Salt Lake, and just looked into each other's eyes like, all right, done. That's it.
We knew it.
So,
That is storybook.
Yeah.
And so a month later, I told him I wanted to marry him, and he's like, okay. Yeah. And so, and then I was just like, okay, let's do this. Like, I was ready. And he was like, okay. And I think he talked to his friends and they're like, dude, this is way too fast. Like, calm it down.
Yeah.
And so we went through like a phase where it was like, we wanted to get married, but like, we didn't want to be those people, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And so he was like working on the proposal, and that was like 3 months after we talked about getting married. And I was like, there better be unicorns and rainbows because this is taking so long. But he took me to the same place that on the beach where we danced and proposed. And he showed me this video that he'd made and spent like hours and hours on.
Yeah.
I kind of felt bad because I was like making like, why aren't you doing this?
I told you it was going to be good. It was going to take a minute, but it was going to be great.
But it was because he was like making billions of signs and yeah.
Filming with my friends all over Utah, all over those places we had been. So.
But yeah.
And that video's on YouTube, right?
Yeah, we'll have to link it in our description because we've
If you
seen
guys
it.
don't mind.
Yeah.
And it's really cute.
Yeah. So Dallin Sellers is my friend. He's a vlogger, and he recorded it for us. He and I have been friends for forever.
We'll give you the link.
Yeah,
cool. So we'll put that in the show notes for everybody. And so between that first time meeting and then getting married, how long was it?
7 months.
7 months, yeah. So we've been together for a year and a half total. Yeah, about so.
That's good. And what was were there any sort of people that stood out in your mind as completely against you guys getting married so quickly?
No.
Not against. His friends were kind of like, you guys haven't even had a fight yet. You know, like, calm
To be
down.
fair, a year and a half later, we barely had it.
Yeah, that's true. But like, I don't know. There wasn't anyone that was super against it. I think there was a few people that were like, are you sure?
Yeah.
But
hesitant of the speed at which things are moving.
Right.
But nothing against us.
Yeah. Because like my parents loved him, my whole family loved him more than they loved me. And yeah, so that's about it.
Yeah.
That's cool. Do you I actually lost the question that I was going to ask. That's okay. So 7 months from beginning to end, and now you guys are 10 months in.
10 months into.
So that's really exciting. And I remember the question now. So you said there on the night, like when you looked into each other's eyes, there was like sort of a tangible feeling probably that you knew. Can you find any way to describe how you knew? Because people are always like, oh, how'd you know?
How'd you know?
How do you know?
You know, so like, is there any way for you to describe that feeling or like looking at each other and what went on?
I think for me, it was just like an all-encompassing feeling where it was like, I love this person individually, completely through and through. You know, just like looking at him, it was just like all the way. It wasn't just like, oh, I like that he's cute. I like his eyes. I don't, you know what I mean? It wasn't like piece by piece. It was like overall everything. And that's kind of how it felt.
I think when you asked that question, my answer was really similar. It was like, you know, we had been on these wonderful dates. We just had such a great time. And right from the beginning, we loved being together. But just right then, it felt like it just expanded, just like beyond what I could feel or touch. Or it was exciting. It was electric. Just knowing that I was like, yeah, I'm going to be with this person for the rest of my life and past that. So.
Yeah,
that's
hard
to describe.
It is very hard to describe. But it's exciting. Our story's a little bit different.
A little bit. It's like drastically different.
It takes all kinds.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, it takes all kinds. But the moment that it came for me was actually, strangely enough, we weren't even together. I guess, quote unquote, together, because I had moved out to San Francisco for an internship, and she had come out to visit, and I was just like, I had no idea about the future, like absolutely zero confidence in the future, and many doubts. So I was like, I don't know if this is gonna keep working. Like, I don't know if this is really what I want. So she ended up leaving San Francisco after visiting for a week, and like we didn't talk for a while.
Yeah, we went on a break.
Yeah.
Well, well, we say break because we were still talking, like, but it was like we talked like every 2 weeks, and we would like Skype.
Yeah,
but
and we'd still text back and forth if we like thought of something funny. But at one point, I was out with all my roommates from school in San Francisco, and we were walking back because we lived like 15-minute walk outside of downtown San Francisco. So we would always, wherever we were throughout the city, we'd always just take a bus to downtown because it was the cheapest option, and then walk home. For them, it was to walk off the alcohol and sort of the hangover. And for me, it was just fresh air. So we're walking, and I'm talking to a good friend of mine, Nate, and we're talking about just stuff. He had a girlfriend that he had broken up with, so we were talking about that and sort of his prospects for the future and what he was thinking. And then he would ask me about what I was thinking and like what was going to happen. And we started talking about it, and it just suddenly came to me because I'd gone on sort of casual dates with girls in San Francisco just to see. But every time I came home, I'd call her. It wasn't like thoughtful, like call. It was just like, I would come home and I'd be like, oh, I really want to talk to somebody. I want to talk to Taylor. And for me, that happened on that walk home, where all of a sudden there were no doubts and there was no fear, and there was complete confidence in the future that, oh, that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Like, you got it. Yeah. All of a sudden it all clicked. And then I thought, this isn't going to be easy to get back to where we were and to sort of like keep growing from what we had.
And it wasn't. We struggled.
Yeah.
Oh, it was rocky for a little bit.
Yeah. For probably a good part of a year.
Yeah.
But obviously totally worth it. So that's so cool that it's just that much different, that even though we're very similar people, because you guys grew up in the church as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So both of us did as well. And then, so even though we have very similar sort of upbringings, whether like the finer details are different, but very similar upbringings, but very different stories on how we found each other. So that's really cool. We've got some questions. So the first one, which is like, we want to have by the end of this show, whenever it decides to end, it'd be really cool to have like our own encyclopedia of definitions of love.
I like that.
Well,
So this is why I told you guys or asked you not to talk about it beforehand.
Yes, and we didn't.
So that you guys could sort of be maybe a little like, oh, that's so cool that you think of love in that way. So what are your personal definitions of love?
You want to start this time? Ladies first.
I knew that was coming. So
Such a Southern gentleman.
I think for me, it depends on the stage and the person individually. So for me, the first stage was that encompassing love of just wholeness, and you love that person all the way, not just bits and pieces. And I think as love progresses, it becomes more detailed and it becomes more deep in a way that you want to learn everything about this person, so you know how to make them happy and you know how to show them your love. And so just taking the time to really know them, to be able to do that. I don't know. That's all.
Yeah, you always hear that love is time. Love is the time that you spend together. But I think it's more than that. I think it's appreciation. And I loved what you said about that. And that was a thought that I had in my mind, is that it's loving somebody outside of yourself, loving somebody in such a way that you just feel and need and want them to succeed in everything that they do. And, that takes some work on your part, that takes some work to love somebody in the way that they want to be loved and to be cherished. And that's, for us, I think it was really easy because our love languages are so very closely tied. And that's not the case with a lot of people. And I know there are a lot of people that, that's something that takes a while to learn. But I think
We just lucked out.
we lucked out. Yeah, we really did.
Yeah.
No, but that just taking the time to think about and appreciate that person more and more to where it doesn't plateau, it doesn't go down, the appreciation goes up.
Yeah. Do you remember yours?
I need to grab it on my phone. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay.
And that was like, what, a year ago?
Close. We're coming up on a year.
Fingers crossed. Still have it. My second phone.
So
I should have written mine down. It's more eloquent that way.
I thought it would be that way. It wasn't when I wrote mine down. Yeah. A cool sort of architectural, sort of horticultural example of your definition of love is how vines, everyone's always so fascinated that vines will climb up buildings and how quickly you can actually install, they call them green walls now, but before it just happened naturally, before people started pasting it on their walls. But the way they grow is it grows so quickly up the wall because it's reaching for sunlight. It's sort of like reaching for that warmth, and the more sunlight it gets, the faster it can grow. So it'll keep growing up, and it'll actually follow shadow lines, which is pretty cool.
That's cool.
If you have like a definite sun path above your house, when the vines start growing, they'll stay in the sun. So you'll actually know where a shadow is on your house or not, which is pretty neat. But they grow super quickly. And in these first couple like months to a year, a couple years, it can actually be very fragile. Where if you get like a significant windstorm, it'll just sort of peel off like a piece of paper. But once it gets established, but once the vines get established, they start to take root. And the cool things about vines is that the whole thing is sort of a root, that as the vine grows up, it can splice off a root and take hold. So it grows very quickly, like searching for that warmth. And then once it has its spot, it'll start to dig in to sort of hold on. And that's what I thought of when you were giving your definition, because that quick growth, like you all encompassing and it's so loving, but then after you reach that level, you sort of got to dig in. Otherwise it can be so fleeting, because you can be like, wow, absolutely. Like I loved this person so much. Like, where did it all go? If you don't take that next step or like find that next level, you could just be blown right off the side. And the crazy thing is that if you find vines that have been there for centuries, or like not centuries, but decades, like a good example that I know of because of my baseball past is Wrigley Field in Chicago is one of the oldest baseball parks still around, between Wrigley and Fenway in Boston. But the entire outfield wall was brick and is now vines. And the vines are so thick now that actually sometimes when people hit baseballs, they just go in and you can't find them. So the outfielders have to put up their hands to just say, I can't find the ball. So then they get a new ball. But they're so ingrained and have essentially become one with the wall that if they try and tear some of the veins off, they actually end up tearing some of the grout out of between, like the rock between the bricks, which is incredible, like the kind of hold that it can have. So I thought about the same way that love can sort of be so ingrained and so deep within us that we don't want to let anyone go.
And I really liked what you said about like love is like knowing like how to love like your partner, like as much, well, how like they want to be loved, because, well, did you guys read the Love Languages book by? Yeah. Okay. So 'cause in that book, it talks about how like you need to like read your partner's like love language and make sure that you are filling their love tank, because your idea of like love and how like you want to love somebody may be completely different than how like they want and like need to be loved. I think it's one thing to like love somebody, but it's another thing to like go out of your way to like show them in the way that they want that you love them. So that if you're able to do that, then I think that's like a whole nother level. And yeah, for you guys, like if you guys are the same, like obviously you looked at there, which I think we're becoming, I think like I'm meshing more like into like how you like it, but like we're still different.
Right.
So it was rough.
I think
first.
it's like our top 3 are the same 3, just swapped in different orders.
Yeah.
Okay, so ours hasn't necessarily been like finding out like how each other wants to be loved, but sort of like what moment, like the equal balance. The equal balance between the 3.
Yeah. And it can like change on the day or like the situation.
Yeah, and I think we've seen that too, is like it's progressed because my love language from the beginning of when we were married and now is different. And it's different. Yeah, and so like that's the thing is when you keep going, like keep reevaluating.
Yeah, exactly.
Where you're at.
Love should have different phases. I mean, it should keep growing. Like you said, it should keep growing up.
Yeah.
And of course, it'll grow deeper when you really, really get to know and understand your partner. But
yeah, for sure.
Let it
so
grow.
it'll be interesting to see where we all are at in like
and then
5,
once
10 years.
Like a graph of it.
Up, down.
That would be really funny.
There's an example that I love. I have an aunt and an uncle that are so funny. They are so perfect for each other and they love each other deeply and dearly, but they will like yell and scream at each other. And so I lived with them for a little while in California and I was working there. And it's so funny because they would be like yelling and screaming at each other one second and the next second they're cuddled up on the couch and they're just very vibrant personality. So really it does. It takes all kinds. It really does. And I've seen...
And it works in different ways.
And it works. Yeah. And I think you just kind of learn different lessons at different times.
Yeah.
Right.
It's very true. Oh,
you
all right.
Share yours
okay.
For them?
So my definition of love, this was written August 26th, 2018 at 2:44 p.m. So this is what I thought then, and we'll see if it's still what I think now.
If you agree with yourself.
Yeah. So I said, love is the feeling when you care so much about somebody that you would do anything for them. Their feelings become your feelings. Their needs become more important than your own. And being around that special person becomes a necessity. Love is knowing you would do absolutely anything for that person, even if it means you have to make your own personal sacrifices. Love is when your heart just overflows with happiness when you hear from them and they make you the happiest person alive. Love is embracing all of your imperfections and flaws and helping them become a better person every step of the way. Love is when you're so mad that you can't stand one another, but at the same time, you don't want to spend your day or night without them by your side. Still accurate.
Still accurate.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Still accurate.
I really like that.
Yeah. My definition of love is written in a notebook, but I was trying to think of like how to describe it and how I would single it out in my head, that emotion. And for a lot of my childhood, I was very apathetic because I thought it was just sort of the easier way to go about things. And it wasn't until college that I learned that you cannot suppress one emotion.
Without suppressing all of them.
Yeah, without suppressing all of them. So you can't just single out one emotion and say like, well, I want to feel disappointed, so I'm just going to push it away. And I think that the Pixar movie Inside Out did a really good job of like explaining this phenomenon, or it's like this theory. In a very simple way. So the fact that in my childhood, sort of the way I dealt with emotions was just pushing them away. And like, then as I grew older, my Aunt Karen, I lived with them in Indiana for about 6 months, preparing for my mission. I was working full time for my uncle, who's a contractor. And one day she just comes up to me and she goes, "You're not disappointed at all?" Something had happened. She's like, "You're not disappointed at all by this?" I was like, "No, life goes on. Like, it's the past. Like, I'm not going to sit and dwell on it. I'm just going to keep going and like keep working." And she's like, "You're pretty apathetic, aren't you?" And I was like, "I guess." Like, I didn't know what apathetic meant at the time.
Is that a good thing?
Yeah. And I was like, "I guess." Because she's very smart. She's very intelligent.
She is.
Emotionally intelligent.
Emotionally intelligent as well. Yeah. Yeah. Both.
Both. That's what you want.
And I was like, "Oh, I guess." And like that sort of ended the conversation. And later on, I was like, "What is apathy? Like, what does apathetic mean?" And yeah, it was like one who lacks emotion or like expresses emotion. So feelings of apathy is just sort of like nonchalantness, I guess. So for me, like probably started 2 years ago, probably now, that I like really started trying to focus on like defining emotions in my head and like what I was feeling at a certain time. And for me, it just helps to sort of single it out, to sort of push everything out. And I think like, well, I love baseball, but I could go without it. You know, like I love donuts, but there's sometimes where I go like a year without eating a donut. And that's not the type of love that I want to have. So like defining that type of love, the love that is unfeigned, that never withers, never goes away, that is solid, that's something you can rely on. For me, that's like the love that I want to have. So I do believe that it's like a spectrum, but like that my goal and my definition of love is that ultimate sort of sacrificial love where you can dedicate yourself to others so that then you don't have to worry about yourself, not in a way that is degrading, but
that true love gets you outside yourself.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. So I totally agreed with that.
Well, I kind of like how even when you're in a fight or if you're disagreeing about something, you can fall back on the love instead of, because people are going to let you down. Your spouse is going to let you down. It's just kind of how it is because we're human. Yeah. But the love is like an entity that you both can depend on that is solid, like you said. And I kind of like that.
Yeah. I think it's cool how it takes a part of like each one of us. So like we're contributing to it, but it's not our own.
Yeah.
Because like we're outside of it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, it is something that you can rely on because it's not yours individually. So you can't be like, no, that's my love.
Yeah.
You can't.
You're degrading my love. Like, it's a shared feeling. So it is something that you can fall back on.
I like that, thinking of it as something separate, because like for us, we are both incredibly stubborn and opinionated people. We have, you can't see Michaela, she's shaking violently right now. Very stubborn, very opinionated. We both have ideas of how things should be and work, but the thing that we try to maintain above all is that respect for each other and understanding.
And respect for our love.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. I never thought about it until you started talking the way you did. So I guess that's what these things are for.
Yeah, exactly.
This is why we wanted this. That's awesome. Yeah. Right. So this is a cool little activity that you guys can do. So describe one another in your own words.
You have to go first.
Okay, I'll go first. So emotional intelligence is something that Michaela has in droves. I mean, I spend so much time, I love philosophy and I love thinking about people and, just how things work and systems. And then sometimes she just says something that just blows my mind. And I'm just like, what? But
in a good way,
admire,
right?
Yeah.
Blows your mind in a good way.
Blows my mind. Like, no, not condescending. No.
What are you thinking?
No. I admire her so much. I really do. And she is so caring and so kind. And I'm kind of a people pleaser. And so I could say that about people, but I really mean that when I say that about Michaela. Just the kindness that she has and just always making sure to take care of other people. I think she does that to a T. I think that's most of what her life is dedicated to, is just understanding and helping people. And I'd use there's a million other ways that I could describe her, but I admire her so much for all those things.
Cool. Okay. So, I don't know how to start. I think what drew me to Ben, I keep hitting this. What drew me to Ben the most was just his optimism for life and for everything. And there's something that I always kind of, don't know how to explain this. My words are like not working right now. I'm sorry. But I kind of live by where I am kind of prone to more depressed thoughts and things like that. And to kind of get myself out of that, I try to notice just like the beauty in everything and like the beauty in flowers, people around, whatever, and just kind of get outside of that. And that's just kind of the like epitome of Ben. That's like his core characteristic is just finding the good in everything. And like we could be having the worst day and he can just be like, well, this is great. And part of me is like super mad. I'm like, no, it's not. There's nothing good about this. And like in the morning, he's so happy. I don't trust happy people in the morning. But like, he's like, good morning. I'm like, no. And just that is what keeps me going and keeps me away from the darkness that I felt before. And so that's my favorite thing about it. That's so cute.
Yeah. That is. I like defining that as a simple optimism. Because there's some people who are like professional optimistic.
Or everything's great all the time.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, you can always find something good. And it's like, it's a little complicated because they're always sort of pushing the envelope, stretching for it. So I like when, people are genuinely optimistic, such as yourself, which I also see, which is an amazing quality. It's just that like, it's so simple because it's just like, well, it's good. Like life is still good. Bad things happen, but life is still good.
And I'll tell you, that was something to be built. It wasn't. I think it's a deep part of me now, but that's something that I think there was a period of time in my teens where I kind of had to fake it till I made it. So I think there's a little more of that. But after a while, it just started to realize, you know what? Hey, that's true. That's right. Yeah. Anyway, that's not just, it doesn't just come naturally, but
it is natural at this point.
But it is natural at this point, and it really is, and it's sincere.
So a similar question that I had written down was talking about little things. So what is your favorite little thing or small act of love that the other does for you that lets you know they love you?
This kind of goes back to like our love languages. Talk. I think it depends on the day and like what the other person is feeling. And I think that is just a sign of love, just wanting to know what's going to work in that moment, And so some days Ben will like unexpectedly like do the dishes and I come home from work and I'm exhausted and like it's clean and it's wonderful. And he knows sometimes he can just tell that that's what I need that day. There's one time, it was last week, I had like the worst day ever and I came home and it was clean. He didn't know I had a bad day and I just started bawling.
Is everything okay?
I was just like broke
terrified.
Down.
My male brain was terrified. What did I do?
But sometimes like the little things are just like brushing my hair when it's really ratty and I don't want to do it. And just like holding me when I'm sad and just little things like that. So, yeah.
Awesome.
I remember I had a conversation with my brother one time on a road trip, and I was like, I do, because I've tried to spend a lot of time. I was the oldest in my family, so I spent a lot of time taking care of people. And even in past relationships, I had done the same. And so for me, the ways that Michaela shows me that she loves me, that touch me the most, are those ways, those little tiny moments where I can tell that she cares about me and for me. A wonderful example is I sometimes have like late church meetings with the missionaries of our church, and anytime if I am like 5-10 minutes later than she thinks I'm going to be, she gives me a call, and we talk basically the whole way of me driving home. And she does that all the time. If I have to be driving somewhere on a road trip, she just gives me a call and she wants to talk to me. And so I don't, because, my people pleaser, I'm like, I don't want to keep someone on the phone for way too long, but I don't know. It's wonderful. And we talk every day at lunch. We call each other, and just those little tiny things that just say that even when I'm off doing my own thing, she's thinking about me and she cares about me. And that it's a small thing, but it means the world to me.
Well, thanks for sharing. being vulnerable. You have one?
I was going to
For
ask
me?
you first.
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. So something like a small thing that I always like about Taylor, a big thing about Taylor, just to start, like out the window, is that she's like very passionate and like dedicated about the things she cares about. So it also, like, whether it be fitness or helping others or sort of empowering others, that's like one of her passions. So she gives 100%, she's all in, and she's very dedicated to those things. And then the small thing is related to that, in that it always catches me off guard, which is like the perfect way to describe it. When I come home and she like wants me to be there, which sounds weird to say. And some people would be like, well, that's just normal. But like for me, and as a way to describe it, in high school, I was self-diagnosed as a social butterfly, is what I called myself, because I never had like one specific group of friends that I always hung out with. I knew the majority of the football players. I knew all of the baseball players. I knew the majority of the marching band, and then I was in all the art classes all the way through senior year. So it's like I had a wide spread of things that I was interested in, but I never hung out with like one group explicitly. And then like on the weekends, I didn't have like a group of friends that we always got together. I had like my church friends too, but it was almost the same group. I was always just sort of jumping wherever the time felt right. And then in high school, just the way it works, like if you're that kind of person, then no one really reaches out to you. There's never a moment when someone's like, oh, we need Josh here. And I didn't notice that in the moment, right? Because I was just living life. But looking back now, because some people have like high school best friends that they're still friends with. And I have 2 people like that where I can call them at any moment and still talk to them to this day. But for the most part, it's just non-existent. So having someone where I come home and all of a sudden she's like, oh, you're back. Like, oh, you're here. Just that like little moment is so precious to me and very cherished.
That's so cute. Everything is so cute.
Thanks.
For me, I feel like there's just like there's a lot of little things. How can I think?
Well, you can just spitfire them. that can be your way of expressing it.
Oh.
Just saying all of them. It doesn't have to be very detailed.
I don't know. I mean, I do know. Okay. Oh, I think my love language is always changing, or maybe I'm changing a lot. I'm doing a lot of like growing myself. So I feel like I'm just always constantly changing. So nowadays I feel like I feel the most loved like when you like do stuff for me, because like I'm like a helper. Like I'm always helping like other people. So when like you or other people take the time to actually like take care of me and like do stuff for me to a change, it's like, whoa, like this is what it's like. Like, I don't know. Like, it's like, it's like, I don't like in the moment, like, I don't really know like what to do. Cause I'm like, oh, like I do this. Like, what are you doing? And it's like, oh, that's so nice. Like, I don't have to do it because you're doing it. So whether that's like you lay out like a bag, my fitness bag, cause I'm going to the gym, or like you fill up my water bottle with not only water, but you put ice in the water bottle because I never take the time for myself to put ice in it. Or like you make the bed in the morning, or you just like do that thing where like you sneak up behind me and like you put your arms around me, and I'm just like, oh, that's so cute. Yeah, that's my fave.
Well, thanks for noticing.
There's a whole lot of love in this room.
Yeah.
That's it.
All the feelings.
We're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll be right back with you guys. When I had an idea to start a podcast, I had no idea where to start. But I had listened to Candace and Casey's couples therapy, and they had mentioned an app called Anchor. And I was really intrigued to see how really simple it could be to make a podcast.
Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast Best of all, it's free and ridiculously easy to use. And now Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means that you can get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now by reading this ad.
So, if you always wanted to start a podcast and make money doing it, go to anchor.fm/start. That's Anchor, as in ANCHOR.FM/START to join me in the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. I can't wait to hear your guys' podcasts. Okay, this is a big one that we like to cover a lot. So, and it all stems from a previous episode that we had about expectations. And sort of, it was an article that my sister shared with me called "The Silent Killer of Relationships," and it was an entire article written on expectations, and that any major sort of disagreement or argument that comes in a marriage can, like 90% of the time, be rooted in some type of communicated expectation or misunderstood expectation. So we always hear that like the two things that break up marriages the most are sex or money.
Yeah.
So in money wise, people are expecting two different things. You get an argument about it. One's expecting to save, one's expecting to spend, things like that. And all of a sudden you're in a huge argument. You didn't even know why. And then same thing could be done with sex. So the question that we have for you guys, it doesn't have to be so deep unless you want to take it there, which is what has been, how has marriage differed from your initial expectation of what it would be like?
You know, I think we were saved some of this hassle, because this is actually a big conversation that we had before, is that, you know, Michaela told me this when we were dating. She's like, you know, it's really important to me to not have these huge expectations that I put on you. And it kind of confused me for a little while, and I kind of didn't fully understand it. And I was like, well, you know, I want you to have expectations of me. I feel like that's going to help me grow. But I've kind of come to understand now a little bit more of that, I think. Yeah. So that's just a preface for that.
Yeah, so I don't, it's not that I don't believe in expectations. I try to limit them, I guess. I don't know how.
It's hard to describe.
Yeah, I just, I like to fill things out naturally and then kind of see where to set the boundary.
Yeah.
And it's because she has a very difficult time with insincerity.
Yeah.
A very difficult time. If there's anyone who's being insincere to her, she picks up on it really quick, and she does not like it. And so I think that's what it was, is that you didn't want me to be and act outside of something that I actually was. So anyway.
Yeah, and so my expectations of marriage, I didn't have any. Really? It sounds silly, but I really didn't. It was just, I loved this person, and I wanted to get married to him, and I wanted to spend the rest of my life with him. And that was about it. Yeah. I didn't expect to be happy forever. I didn't expect to be financially stable forever. I didn't expect anything. I just wanted to live with him forever. And so I wasn't disappointed because I didn't have any.
Well, and I mean, you know, we have a normal relationship. That's right. You know, we have a normal relationship. Yeah. You know, because we have expectations, but I think it was just more subtle expectations than of marriage, you know, of marriage itself. Right. So I think for us, one of the big things that we had been told about, but was, I guess, more difficult to wrap our minds around, was just, I've said this before and I'll say it again, we're both really stubborn people. Yeah. We both have these ideas and ways of how things are going to work. And I think one of the things that surprised is how much you kind of have to bend in marriage, and realize that, hey, you know what? Your way's not always the best way. Right. I know you think that, but it's not. And so I think that's like learning to rely on each other's ideas and styles and sense of things, and know when to go with one or the other. You know, and it requires a lot of humility, which is difficult.
Right. For sure.
But yeah,
I think that also comes with the fact that that like both of our relationships, we decided to start so young, because I know sort of recently people have been talking about quarter life crises, like having a quarter life crisis, which is like you're 25 and you like graduated college and now it's like, oh, now what? So they're also referring to like the decade of your 20s as the decade of choices, where you're like choosing what you want to do with your life. You're like choosing who you want to be with, choosing where you want to live, choosing like what you want to do. And all of a sudden you're given all of these life choices like immediately, and having to sort of like go off of our own intuition, or like any normal person, just like, oh, this is what I've thought. This is what I've learned throughout my childhood so far. This is what I'm going to do because that seems right. And now all of a sudden you're with someone else who has completely different experiences, completely different thoughts. And now you're trying to do things together. It makes it for an interesting experience, but also I think sounds like you guys are handling it really well, that you like have learned to understand one another and to at least listen. Maybe you don't.
We're good at listening. Even if it's a lot to listen to.
Right. So that's really cool. On expectations wise, these 3 words that I wrote down while you were talking, and it's something that I've come to understand better after we read that article, because I had the same thought process as you, or at least what I think is the same thought process.
Probably.
You can cut me down if you think I'm wrong. I know. But always, and it might come from just like the way we're raised in the church, but when people tell me like don't have expectations, I was like, well, a goal is an expectation. Why am I not going to set personal goals for myself or like personal growth? Like that's the whole purpose, is like keep getting better. So like, of course I expect myself to be better later, you know? And like, so is that going to kill me later on? Like, my expectation of me being better is going to end up killing me. So the 3 words that I wrote down were expectations, aspirations, and accountability. Because in my mind, I said, well, if I have 0 expectations, then I eliminate accountability. Like I no longer am accountable for anything because I don't expect to be doing anything. I don't expect anything good to happen. I don't expect anything bad to happen. So all of a sudden I'm no longer accountable. Like, well, what happens, and I'll just roll with it. And I didn't like that. I don't think that really gels with our beliefs either in like the gospel and having to choose for ourselves. So the word aspiration comes in because I think expectations plus communication equals an aspiration. Expectations are the silent killers of relationships when we don't express them. When we have an expectation for someone and we don't ask them or tell them like, oh, this is what I'm expecting to happen, this is what I'm planning on happening, then all of a sudden that can become very detrimental to a relationship. But when we express our expectations and say, look, I really want to get better at this, I really want to improve this, that's no longer an expectation of something to happen. It's an aspiration. Like you want to go after it. That's cool. And that all of a sudden puts back accountability. It like brings accountability back into those choices. So maybe like that's a different way of thinking about it, to say that yes, expectations can be detrimental if not expressed. But as soon as we express them, and then you're like, especially with her, because she's trying to grow her business right now, her online coaching business. Like if she expected things to happen and never told me, like she could have a very depressing next couple months if she's trying to strive for these things all alone. But the moment she tells me her goals and what she's expecting to do, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, this is what she wants to happen. So like I can now help her achieve those aspirations. So
I think you put into words my process there. I mean, that's much more eloquently than I could have.
Well, thank you.
But it's interesting because, we hear that about expectations. And for us, we've already talked about that as a buzzword. And so that's why I kind of explain, it's like, no, we have, we have the ups and downs, and we learn about each other, and it's frustrating sometimes. But I think that was just Michaela saved us a lot of, trouble with that, with making that a buzzword, the expectations. It's not like, oh, I need you to do this or change or to be this. It's, that should just be something natural. Mm-hmm. And so, I kind of learned that, I guess, in a little bit of a way. What you were explaining there is like, no, it's better in practice than it sounds. Like expectations in a relationship. And let's change it to aspirations. I like that much better.
Yeah. It becomes a team effort and less of an individual thought process. Yeah.
Not putting your expectations on other people, but building those aspirations together.
Right.
Yeah. I like that. Cool. Nice.
And I think, I don't know if you wanted to move on.
No, you go ahead.
I think that there's like a learning curve like to that, like most definitely as well. Like I think going into marriage, like I don't want to say like you can't like have that, but it's definitely like not going to be like as great or as strong as it will be. Like even like after you've been together for like a month or two, where you're actually like in each other's like faces, like day to day, like talking and things go wrong and you're still learning about each other, like no matter how long like you guys have been together. So yeah, I think it comes with a whole new way of trying to do things and trying to learn, trying to be the most like efficient as a couple, like together.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay. So I think, thank you for sharing. Mm-hmm. I think you guys have touched on it a little bit, and my guess would be that this is your biggest struggle in your relationship. But the question that I had was, what has been the biggest struggle in your relationship so far? But my guess would be stubbornness and opinions.
Yeah, I think just learning each other. Learning how the other person works, thinks, and feels. And I want to say changing or adapting a little bit, but just understanding that. What do you think?
I think just letting love trump stubborn, because it takes like a lot of humility to just let go of years and years of thoughts and ideas and ways of doing things, and just letting the love that we have to trump that.
Kind of the mantra in our relationship has been a quote by Thomas S. Monson, who's the late prophet of our church, which was, never let a problem to be solved become more important than a person to be loved. And I'm just going to be honest here. I think she's suffered with that much more than I have, because I'm very opinionated and I love to cook, and we'll be in the kitchen and I dance around trying to show her how to do it this way or something. And she's like, it's fine. It's going to get done. And so I think for me, that's been one of the biggest learning curves, is just realizing sometimes it is not about the problem. It's not about getting it done the way that I think it should get done. It's about, we're having a wonderful time. We're here. We're cooking a meal together. Just let it go.
Yeah. It's really focusing on the bigger picture of it all.
Yeah. And that was hard, and it's still hard, and I still annoy her sometimes with it. But I'm working on it a lot. So.
That's good. One of my favorite comedy specials ever, which some might debate that it's not exactly comedy, but I laughed plenty during it, was a comedy special by the comedian Mike Birbiglia. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
You told me about him.
Yeah.
I had it to look up, so I've got it on a note on my phone, but I haven't watched it yet.
So he's a really funny guy. He's a chronic sleepwalker. So he's got a really good comedy hour or a special about sleepwalking. It's called Sleepwalk With Me, which is really funny. But one that he put out is called My Girlfriend's Boyfriend. And it's all about his relationship history and how he met his now wife. And he explains during the episode that he never believes and still does not believe in the concept of marriage. He thinks it's strange. He thinks it's weird that we have to have a legally binding document to say that we love each other. he thinks it's odd. But he's a married man. So then he's like, let me explain. And then the whole comedy hour is him explaining his relationship past. And he explains this moment where he got in a car accident, where he got in a really big fight with his now wife when they were still dating. And he drove away incredibly quickly and then got to a stop sign, stopped, looked both ways, pulled out, and got T-boned by a drunk driver. But he said it spun his car around, and obviously he was sort of in shock. And he says the first thing he remembers is hearing the screech of tires as the guy drove away. Mm-hmm. And then he passed out. And he said he woke up and the police were already there. And like the police was just trying to get him to sign the report so that he could go home because the ambulance has already been there. So he keeps shoving the report in his face, in Mike's face, just saying, just sign it. Like, it's just telling us what happened. And he's like, well, it wasn't my fault. He's like, that wasn't my fault. Like, I got T-boned. And the cop was like, yeah. We've got that all written down. And he's like, but where's the guy? It's a hit and run. And he's like, well, not exactly. And he said he pointed down the street and the guy had ended up crashing into a telephone pole because he was so drunk that after he hit the first car, he drove on 200 meters down, crashed into a light pole. He's like, we got him under arrest. He's in the back of my car. Like, just sign the report. So Mike just signs it and it ended up being completely wrong. The police officer had swapped driver 1 and driver 2 3 or 4 times between the report. So the insurance company said that they were both at fault because there was no way for them to understand between the two witnesses what actually happened. So he spends like 2 years trying to sort this out. He's like spent thousands of dollars on legal fees, and it's sort of driving him mad. Because he knows he's right. He knows he's got a case, but the only thing that needs to happen is for the police officer to admit that he screwed up the report. And he says he finally gets a hold of this police officer, and the police officer says, do the right thing and pay the bill. And he was like, do the right thing? He's like, are you kidding me? He's like, I spent 2 years doing the right thing. And it all ends up that he's like, it consumes him, and he's sitting at dinner with his like then fiance, scribbling like manically on a napkin, describing over and over in his head that it was not his fault. And she said that like he said that she just put her hand over the napkin and looked at him and just said, just pay the bill. It's like, we both know you're right. We know he's wrong. What difference does it make? He's like, just pay the bill. It's driving you crazy. And he said he realized in that moment that he just paid the bill. And he took the bullet. And then at the end of the special, he says, and then we got married 2 months later. And like they're now happily married. And he says, I still don't believe in marriage. And he's like, but I gave up on the idea of being right. He's like, it just wastes too much time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that hit me so hard, and it was like stuck with me this whole time because I probably watched that 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. It's an older special, and it's just stuck with me because a lot of times I know that there's a better, in my mind, that there's a more efficient way to do something. And Taylor goes to do it, and I go, you know what? We're not in a rush. It's not like it needs to be done a certain way. We'll just keep going. And it's like, so do I still think I'm right? Yeah. Does it bother me as much? And like, do I hold it true to no. Like I've given up on the concept of being right. And sometimes it sneaks up a little and I sort of like push my way through, but I think it's a better way to live. Like a lot more. Yeah, a happier way to live and a more satisfying way to live. So that is definitely a struggle.
Yeah, something I do to help me. I watched this special from it was on the Mormon channel. It was this section this like segment called something Hope. It was like a bunch of like speakers who would like come and talk. And this guy talked, and he was talking about like the like perspection of life. And his name was Stephen something, and it was like my favorite like thing I've listened to. But his whole thing was like, he was explaining this like situation with his job and like things really weren't working out, and he just wasn't happy. And so what he started doing was he like wrote on a sticky note and he placed it like where he would see it, like in a few places all over his house every day. And he just wrote down like, will this matter in 1,000 years? And if the answer was no, like you move on. If the answer is yes, like, okay, like that's actually something that's worth your time to go figure it out. And that's something like I probably use like daily. I always think about it like, okay, like Taylor, like, is this really something like I should actually like care that much about? And if it's not, like, sort of have to swallow my pride a little bit and like move on.
Does it matter if the onions are sliced or diced?
No, not if I get it done.
So I think what we've learned from this is that Josh, you and I have very understanding wives.
Yes, we do.
That's what we're coming to.
Indeed, we do. Yeah. Okay, so the next one, to end on a more positive note, is what has been the most unexpected blessing so far of marriage? Something that you didn't expect you didn't expect anything.
Yeah, all of it.
So the whole kid and caboodle.
Everything has been the best. I think for us, one of the things has been how much God has shown his hand in everything that we're doing. I mean, we just constantly get these reminders that this is so right, and not just for us, but for the people that we come in contact with. Our marriage itself has just been this incredible blessing that has just brought us on this fantastic journey. We've been married less than a year, and we're getting ready to move for the second time. And every step of it just feels like an adventure. It really does. And that's because of that. Just that I think we're both pretty cautious people. I was very cautious dating and stuff like that before I went on a lot of dates, but I did not date very many people. And I didn't walk with confidence and a surety of a relationship until I married Michaela. And it kind of just put it to bed, and everything since has just been this adventure. I'm so excited for the right now, and for 2 weeks from now, a year from now, 50 years from now. I'm just looking forward to it.
And I think for me, something like the most unexpected was actually the effect it had on my mental health, which is kind of funny. Because before I met Ben, I was on my 5th antidepressant, and I was severely, severely depressed, and anxiety and the whole shebang. And so I tried everything. I tried this TMS thing that's it stimulates parts of your brain that the depression lives. Cost thousands of dollars that my parents paid. I tried everything, and we got married, and 10 months later, I haven't been on an antidepressant, and I work a full job, and it's good, and I just didn't expect that. And so,
that's incredible.
The best. It's been great.
Wow. Yeah.
So love heals all.
Love heals all. Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, the biggest blessing for me, I think, has been the unexpected value of shared experiences. Because, I say it that way because the unexpected value, because I have 6 siblings. So my entire childhood, there's every memory I have, one of them was there with me, it was a shared experience. There was no dull moment, dull solitary moment. Even the dumbest things I did, my brothers were right beside me. The smartest things I did, my family was right beside me. So the unexpected value of shared experience that I have with her, where it's just me and her, and we go and do something. One of the fondest moments that we didn't even plan that I hold is the last day that we spent in Savannah, Georgia. We had stayed in an Airbnb, and as a perk of that Airbnb, they had these old retro all aluminum bicycles. Wow. Shiny aluminum, cool. Not even painted. They're really cool. They had the nice cruiser seats on them. And the guy was there's bike locks on them. Here's the code. If you want to take them with you, lock them up, bring them back. If anything happens with the bike, no worries. Just let us know immediately and we can fix it. And we were wow, this is great. And we spent probably 3 hours or something
I think almost like longer.
Yeah, just riding around the city, and like Savannah's beautiful if you've ever been there, but it's amazing. And just riding around, and like I've ridden hundreds, maybe thousands of miles on a bicycle and like never had an experience like that. So just that unexpected value of shared experiences has definitely been the greatest blessing.
Yeah. And like that experience, like that memory turned into much more, because now like we're going to be going back like year after year because of one experience that we shared together, which is crazy how like really like the small moments in life have the potential to impact like your entire life moving forward.
Yeah.
Well, they start to weave themselves into your relationship. I mean, you know, you're building that together. It's cool.
For me, I was going to say the biggest, what was the question? The biggest blessing.
The most unexpected blessing.
The most unexpected blessing. Yeah. So like people always say like when you get married that like you change, and like whether that's for, well, obviously, probably for the better, right? Like you don't want to change your words. But
I'm distinctly less.
Yeah. So hopefully, that's totally around kidding, the board.
Totally anyway.
But yeah, so people always like, oh, like you're going to change, like blah, blah, blah. I don't think I expected like how much like I was going to change, like from like looking back, like in time, like the Taylor I was when we were like dating and even engaged, like the Taylor I am now is like drastically different. Right. Like, and if I wasn't like if we didn't get married or like even like together period, I don't think I would have made like all that like growth. Just because like you have always like been a dreamer and have like huge goals. And I've seen that, in you, like ever since we started like dating. And we dated for like about like, dated and engaged. It was like
2 years.
Yeah. 2 years, period. So we were together for a long time. So just having that like, impact, that's the word, right? I got up at 4 a.m, so my brain's a little cuckoo. But yeah, having that like impact on me, even though like I still had my own dreams and desires, but I wasn't as confident as I am now then. And so I would like make goals, but they were like goals that I knew for sure I would like hit. So like I wasn't really pushing myself. I wasn't going out of my way to like make things happen, because I was basically just making goals that were going to happen whether or not I tried or not. Like it was just going to happen. But now, and especially like having like that extra support, and like this whole like business growing like opportunity, like I'm doing a lot of just like self-discovery, and I have to step outside of my comfort zone in order for things to work. And I do scary things and challenging things daily that force me to grow. And I wouldn't be so confident and sure of like the person I am and the capabilities that I know I can do now, and the big, huge, scary goals that like someday, like some days when I think about it, I'm like, I don't even know how I'm going to make it happen, but I know I'm going to make it happen. Like I would never be able to dream like that ever if it wasn't for like marrying Josh.
That's awesome. And I think that's like one of the most incredible blessings. It's like for me, I know, total joke, I'm much better. But you know, for me, just that same thing, just realizing I felt like I was pretty confident and comfortable with where I was. And then meeting Michaela and that admiration for her, just like all of a sudden I was like, whoa, like I have so much more to learn and to grow. And she's helped me through that. So I just loved what you said. Anyway, it's beautiful.
Cool. All right. So to end on a more potentially comical note, what is the best advice and the worst advice you've received about marriage?
You first.
So the best advice I received was from my brother Ryan, and it was I think the reception, and he comes up to me and goes like, the only advice I'm going to give you is to ignore all the advice you've received. He just said that like so many people from different experiences are going to tell you what to do, and that like it's going to be so hard or whatever it is, and just ignore that and do you. And just like you know what to do. So not big not to stress about it. Which obviously resonated with me. So I
think our worst advice, the worst advice we got kind of paired with the best advice I got, but adversely, as an opposite. I think the worst advice we got, and it's not that this is bad advice in itself, but it very much doesn't work in our relationship, was like, take the time to find hobbies outside of your relationship and, like make sure you have your own things going for you. That's wonderful advice. And for a lot of people, it works really well.
And we do it.
But that, for me, I felt like that did not need to be the focus of the first year of our relationship.
Right.
We have talents, we have things that we love to do and work on. And to be perfectly honest, we've kind of set those a little bit aside for this first year.
Right.
And part of it may just be that we're both working full-time jobs. We have a lot of responsibilities, and so we don't get to see each other as much. But everything else has taken a backseat to that. And I would rather spend my time with her than working on those other things. There will be time to work on those later.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I said, it wasn't bad advice. It was just for us, it didn't really hold true, because just spending time together, spending time doing nothing together was more valuable than other things. So the best advice I ever got was just, I think, the example of my parents. They were just very kind and loving to each other. And so whatever advice they did give, it carried so much more weight, because I had grown up seeing their relationship and how much they took care of each other. They fought, they did all kinds of stuff, but at the core of it, they respected and admired each other so much.
That's awesome. That's so good. A very good point that you bring up, though, is like advice that may work for others doesn't work for anyone else, because that advice very much so works very well in our relationship.
And it's almost like crucial to our relationship that we have our own thing.
Yeah. And we noticed this early on before we were even married, because just by happenstance, like college let out, she didn't have a ride back up to Cleveland, which was 4 hours away. I didn't have a car at the time. But she had to leave the dorm for like winter cleaning or whatever they do, where they force you to leave your apartment. Strange things that we do in America. So she didn't have a place to live. So she came back with me to my parents' house. But my mom was still working during the day because the elementary schools hadn't let out yet. And then my dad works during the day, obviously, just as a normal person. And then, so we were stuck at my parents' house with like basically nothing to do. And for like 3.5 days or like 4 days.
I think it was longer than that. Wasn't it like
it was like a week? Like 2 weeks?
I think it was weeks.
Oh, okay. In my head,
long
it was
time.
3 or 4 days.
Long time.
It was a long day. Well, maybe after the 3 days, I was like, man, this doesn't work. But long story short, at the end of this, I was really upset. I was like, not really upset, just like really distraught. Like, is this really what's going to happen? Like, is this what it feels like to live with someone? Like, I can't do this. Like that's what it came down to. Like, she's like driving me crazy. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, I can't get away. Like, I'm always just running into her. And like, I feel like I think it was because I felt like because she was there, like I had to be with her. But there was like nothing to do. Like, I felt like I could be doing other things on my own. And that just really sort of like tore me in half, right? Like feeling like I had to be there, but not wanting to be there at that exact moment.
Yeah. And I think it would have bothered me a lot more than it did. But the fact that I was like a guest in like your home, I was just like, I don't know. Like,
I'm like, oh, this is it.
Yeah. And like, I was bored, but I wasn't going to complain about it because you guys were letting me like stay with you. And so like, I wasn't the happiest. Like, I was like, man, like I could be like doing like X, Y, and Z, but like I'm here, but I wasn't going to be like, oh, this is dumb. Like, blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
Luckily there was a good family friend who like we reached out to. I think you reached out to Cindy. And she was like, Cindy, I don't know what to do. Like, he's really frustrated and like really mad.
Yeah, and it's like,
and
I don't know what I did.
He's like bringing these things up. Like, we don't know what to do when we're together. Like, how are we ever going to live together and like have a family together?
Like we went crazy.
Yeah. And Cindy was like, it's okay. Like, that's not how marriage works. She's like, you're not together 24/7. Like, you're not doing things all the time together. And like, you still live separate lives. You just live together and you're building something new together. Mm-hmm. And luckily she like convinced us both to just like not think about it for the rest of the time.
And just sort of get through like the rest of the time we have to spend together.
But now that we're like almost a year and a half into marriage, there are things that we do separately that we enjoy very much alone.
Yeah.
And then it's also like very fun to share with each other. So she's not the biggest baseball fan, but like I love to play baseball.
And I love to watch him play. I may not understand everything that's going on or care to watch everybody play, but when he's up at the bat or he catches a ball, like I'm excited. But anyone else, I'm like, okay, like whatever. Good job. Yeah.
Cool.
So I do that alone. She does her like fitness thing alone, and we're like okay with it. So that's a very just positive point to just say.
It doesn't work for everyone.
Yeah, it doesn't work for everyone.
So if somebody's going to take like a positive note out of this for your own relationship, I think the best advice is don't listen to any advice.
Don't listen to any advice.
Are just wildly different.
Yeah.
And I've seen that in my own life. I have a lot of people that I look up to in their relationships that are wildly different from each other and from our own relationship.
And it doesn't make anything less.
No, it's just it's diversity of experience. It's different.
Although I think the one thing that I think is pretty standard, like across the board or stuff, like I've noticed going for like the best piece of advice was to make sure that like whatever you believe in or a thing that like centers you. So like in our case, like God and like the eternal plan, like that is like the center of your relationship. Because any time where our relationship has been rocky or we've been like unhappy, it has always been because we were slacking in some area, like spiritually, or like maybe a commandment wasn't being like lived like to its fullest, or just one of us like wasn't like spiritually there. But the second we start to like work on it and like get better, like our relationship also gets better and it grows and it flourishes. So
yeah,
for sure.
I think it's just the common ground.
Yeah.
You need to find common ground.
Mm-hmm.
So something that pulls you together.
Yeah, something that pulls you together. So my final thoughts on the day this was incredible. Thank you. This went far better. Yeah, far better than I was expecting.
Expectation. Created some aspirations.
Aspirations for this podcast.
Out the window. That's right.
There are bigger aspirations for the podcast moving forward. I think just sort of to like summarize my thoughts are that like marriage is very different for everyone, and you sort of have to work through it. It takes a lot of patience and a lot of humility. And I think for anyone who's either thinking about getting married or like thinking about committing to a long-term relationship, is that it's not the end goal. Like marriage is simply another level of your relationship. So you're talking in like our terms, right? The millennial terms. You start talking to someone and then you become Facebook official, and then you're like holding hands in public, and then you like introduce them to your family. Those are all levels of your relationship that you're diving deeper. And I think a common misconception is people think I'm going to get married, that's it. But in all reality, marriage is simply another step, and then you start moving together forward instead of trying to figure out where each other stands. So a lot of patience and a lot of humility. You guys can go ahead. Give your final thoughts.
Marriage is wonderful. A relationship that grounds you and makes you better is incredible, and you can build a relationship into that. Just enjoy it. Just take the time to enjoy it and appreciate it. And I think that's been one of the biggest things and the biggest keys to our relationship is enjoying, admiring, and respecting each other. Everything after that, everything's better after that.
10 out of 10 would recommend.
Double thumbs up. 10 out of 10. Anything else?
I was just going to say, so many people are negative, and so many people look at the negative side of things, and negativity in any aspect of your life just destroys you, like, as a person. So in any aspect of your life, and especially in your marriage, like, if someone's giving you negative vibes or giving you negative advice, like, cut them out, X out, gotta go, bye, peace. Like, I'm gonna do my own thing. So yeah.
Find someone to build you up and break you down.
Very much so.
All right. Well, thank you guys for coming, and we appreciate everyone who's listening. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast, give it a old like, leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. We are now available on 13 different platforms,
including the iHeartRadio app. So that's pretty cool.
They got back to us 2 weeks ago and said we were finally approved.
And remember to click the link in our description to watch Michaela and Ben's engagement video.
Yeah. And you can reach out to them. We'll probably tag their social media in the show notes as well, so that you guys can send your messages to them and uplifting thoughts. As always, you can leave us a voice message at anchor.fm/younglove. Click on the big plus button and leave us a minute-long voice message so we can include you.